Action Panties. I ask it 12 questions before I and it happen. Do its kisses taste slipperier than those toads? Does it come in those shoes before brunch? Does it love asphalt faceplants? How does it think that world functions? Would it consider hitting me that option? Is it itself already one more move away from that real? When did it become a subject? And side question, how does that make it feel? Does it kneel down, move its lips in prayer and believe? Does it love its mother? Did it kill its father? What is the difference between bait and food? Over a hook, it begets another. Lastly, and most importantly, does it think it's my responsibility to make it happen? I fear that it all, like when a button is pressed, it would work noisily, mechanically. I fill the room with movements and sounds, living. It is a world destined to humiliate moral light and resistance. I encounter ends not with apotheos, but orgasm. Its story is about spending rather than saving. I am a violent, mean, and sordid place. It rejects transcendence as a way of handling it. My only way out is through. It reaches for the one undergoing it, that unbelievable. I no longer know it is real. It is all too incredible while knowing perfectly well that it corresponds to those facts. I will get together with my hysteric and kill it. Its extremity is balance, the last thing I appear aimed at. I keep with its paradoxical, self-tortured nature. It offers an extremity of soul-filled submission. I offer the energetic bootstrapping philosophy with the lowly standpoint of worn-down sandals. It goes meekly, if not reverently, barefoot. I do provide a balance. It is that mode of psychic survival. I work against Promethean fantasy. It leads to ruin. I am fatally prone to the hubris of Promethean self-sufficiency. It takes or steals or halves what one will from those gods. I am moon-blinded by hubris and glorious feelings. It cannot see that deeper, fatal flaw, my very nature that is a priori lacking fire. It is not very pleasant. I like McDonald's fries. It contains more than 12 ingredients, not including salt. I know where it's from. It granted me personhood, but then I moved. I once lived on Mars too, now I live on Venus. It sets in the east, like Mercury. I thought like two separate ingredients, but those Greeks know better. It's sometimes called Venus's apparition, Lucifer. I learned a lot about Earth by learning why. It needs time. I need carbon dioxide. It hangs a tail in ultraviolet light. I hope to stay here for a while until I leave. It is already falling in love. I don't know why. It turned out so differently. I swallow pride altogether. It attains its truth in absolute desolation. I write about messianic light. It releases me. I exercise my tongue and jaw, knowing they can be hopeful for once. It dances for me. I dance for it. It squarely manifests microscopic implications of something it made me last year. I itch, it itches. I imply that kind of contract. It parasites. I cleanse myself of notoriety. It makes me. I make it so enamoratized. It jogs. I fuck it and am shy in the morning. It's okay to be a little shy. I am concerned with what anesthetizes that subject. It is concerned with nonviolent communication. I would have been legal and ethical to strike it. It is concerned with its wife's neck. I flirt with poetry, bruises softly. It jogs before work. I give it lots of energy to work. It jogs through time and space. I speak for myself. It places itself against those teeth. I imagine it when it cannot be imagined. It is best known for its shape-shifting abilities. I prefer to feast on that bitter, astringent taste of bloated fantasies. It prefers that mother load. I prefer to feast on children. Their fears are less pathological than adults. It says, forget about that grandiose ego, those bloated fantasies. I'm that piece of shit. It stops spending. For now, we eat. I still want to fuck it. It is already here in that form of that disaster. I absorb the stimulant of its critique, replace those other drugs that have put so many into that stupor. It defines itself by what it hides rather than what I say. I throw it, but it bounces back toward that hand. It demands perspective and strawberry cake. I tell it about man's fate. It goes up that nose with a rubber hose. I throw it, but it bounces back. It is what it is. I amount to fuck it. It is what it is a lazy phrase, akin to that business world. I throw it, but it bounces back. It was that lover. I focus on it because it becomes that referent for those givens. It is too close. I want to put it to rest. It does not feel like it is dying, but it is of a small count. I wish the stream of consciousness had less fucks in it. It's unreliable like that revolution. I want to hit it up and never topic about it again. It thrives on having no referent. I wish I had that bigger ego and that smaller superego. It's said that real drive tries to get it just right. I remember February's conceptual fucking. It is hardly possible to give credence to ideas uttered in that impersonal tone of sanity. I'm a real buzzkill, even in death. It sucked that seriousness for true things, that instinct for reality. I expose only by reenacting that authority. It breeds impassivity, so I become barren. I throw it, but it bounces back. It conflates submission to ideology much the same way that depressed subject submits to that depression. I throw it, it bounces back. I no longer call it friend. It tells our story over that substantial concentration of rubbing alcohol. I wrap up all its contents in athletic mesh, strain it, concoct a cracher dans la soupe. I rub that body with it, since that dawn of time until that heaving hour, with camphorated spirits of wine. It helps that medicine go down. I smother it with tenderness. It is generally generic when it gets its third act together. I gather all its moot points into pollen. It introduces itself. Sometimes that state has that hand in it. I obscure language from its source. A few me's whip out. It's not ideology, it's other people. I trigger warning that defiant track, that certain kind of humor. It's sociopathic. I rub the more that crazy woman shouts that ear off from that corner of that neck. It rubs it all over while looking up quotes about Ellen Reitman's husband while sipping lukewarm latte from a sippy cup. I genital panic. Bake a goddamn puff pastry already. It needs to refuse, start thinking for itself. I stop rubbing myself with it. It enjoys without impediments. I enjoy with impediments. I lick it open with that kind of kiss. Open that eye to it, keep that eye closed. It calamity. It calamity, I incarnate. It little bit communism. I little bit capitalism. I little bit banker. It little bit robber. It little bit rape. I little bit sexual assault. I find that best seen in Melancholia when husband scientist John commits suicide. Its end is near when there is no such thing as science. Or I hurt when there is no such thing as science. It breaks that knuckle when there is no such thing as water sports. I try not to align that future happening with John Nada's sunglasses. It uses that command, eating that trash can. I obey brain rhythms. It's not suicide, but that's how it tricks. I think it's my new self all ready to die for those 36 sins I fail to adequately comprehend. It keeps me up at night. I keep it up at night. It routinely matricides that sine qua non of that individuation. I rinse it hard fucking. I turn that partitioned creature into a celestial whole. It looks at my cunt. My imagination dies just the same. It uncouples that idea that it needs my cunt to imagine in the second place. I'm back to real life now. It feels damn fine. I beat that mark inside. It writes its way out. I deny that I. It takes up all my time. My entire world is its domain. Its target is too big to fit in scope. I liner note sweat stains along that track. It hums till that very end. I too still remember it. It doesn't actually remember anything. I smile in its house. It says, "It's a living." I look up to that scaffold, only to I spy. It's not a very good system, I say. I guess. It's a kind of homecoming.